Recording in progress.
All right, welcome. Let me put this on Do Not Disturb. There we go. See, that's the other thing I'm still working on is this is connected to that.
Yes.
So now I'm questioning, does Zoom work even though this is on? Yeah, it does. Okay.
Yeah.
And also,
That I do know.
okay.
Because I always put Do Not Disturb because I also have the Apple Watch.
Yeah. And all the dings that happen.
I was in a class once and I think, was it a yoga class? It just, like an alarm went up, like it just all of a sudden went, what? And then I'm like, I'm thinking, is there something wrong with me? Like, is it detecting, like a health problem?
You're having some health problem. That's hilarious. All right. Does anybody need anything else for like comfort? No? Okay. All right. Well, here we are. Yay. This is like a dream come true. To be over here and not having to teach asana. I love asana. I'm actually teaching at night, I think.
I think you are too.
Because Jamie is sick and there's a few other teachers that aren't feeling good. But let's close our eyes so we can just get into the space together. And take a few deep breaths. And then opening your eyes when you're ready. That's a little better. So welcome to JOY Karuna. My intention of having these classes in the morning is to just bring different concepts of how, like applying the concepts of the philosophy of yoga and Buddhism to allow us to live, like applying them in our lives, right? So every time you come here, and it's Josh's intention as well, my husband, you'll see his classes on the schedule. We were just talking about it yesterday, is we really just want everyone that comes here to leave with something to apply, right? Not just come here, listen to something that seems really abstract, and then leave and like let it go, right? Because these teachings, the philosophy of yoga and Buddhism, is just meant to be applied, that's it. Meant to be lived. And I know sometimes the concepts can seem huge or, like hard to grasp. Like, how do you live with compassion all the time? How are you supposed to love everyone? Especially these days where it can feel really daunting. And so I was thinking about today, there's a million places that I could start, and there's not really a start, there's no beginning or ending with any of this, it's just continuous, so every time you show up, there's going to be something new to talk about. Sometimes I'll read from a book, like a Yoga Sutra book, or a sutra in Buddhism, or what, I don't even know, just different, whatever it is. But for today, what I want to talk about, what's been coming up for me is something that's been hard to ignore, right? Is like what's happening in the world. There's a lot of suffering with the war that's happening and the conflict, right? With that, from my internal conflict is like, I feel helpless sometimes when I look at the world and all the suffering that exists, and I'm just like, what can I do? And I always just come back to these practices, like as me as an individual, and then what I'm able to do in my life, the people that I share my life with, and my environment. And it just always comes back to love and compassion, right? Cultivating that within myself. And my practices right now are very much chanting, devotional singing mantras, Sanskrit mantras, in English, however it comes out. But that's what I turn to cultivate that feeling, or generate that feeling of love within myself. And I have to be okay with that being the thing that I do. Like, if I can move through whatever fear or even anger or wanting to choose sides, those feelings that come up in me, if I can move through that and then kind of cling to love, knowing that I have a choice, right? I can go down, we see it every day within ourselves. You can go down a rabbit hole and feel all those really super challenging emotions, or you can, and it still is challenging, you can choose love and compassion. And it's like, how do you do that? Because sometimes the other one feels really strong, the anger and the fear and what's going to happen, right? And then, like, for me, I find when I do my practices, I don't even have to sit. Like this morning, this is like my new thing, is I'm on my exercise bike and I'm listening to my mantras, and I look like a crazy person. Today I faced my little bike towards the window, opened it up, and I'm listening to the Hare Krishna mantra, and I'm like waving my arms around. No one was awake at my house, but I'm thinking, if the neighbors, can they see me? Like, is someone waking up and standing behind me being like, all right, mom has lost it? But whatever it is, it brings me true joy. And this morning I was able to, and oftentimes when I do the mantras, I'm able to tap into that, the joy of it, and then start to extend it out. Extend the joy, the love, the compassion. I'll start to visualize the world, and that just radiating out from me, even to the earth in front of me. Today I was looking out the window, so I'm imagining it just pouring into the earth, right? And then I start to have images of, humanity and just infusing that love into the world. And that's the best, maybe that's the best that I can do for today. I'll see what happens, right? Who comes into my life, and, the individual experiences that I might have, and hopefully the practice infuses that throughout the day. Oftentimes I'll get healing requests from people from the studio, or, people that are going through really hard things. They'll reach out to me, and honestly, sometimes, my life is super busy. I always make time for it, but sometimes I find myself feeling like maybe that's a burden, and then I have to stop myself and say, no, that's not a burden. Like, that can be my contribution to send love and Reiki or whatever it is that I'm doing, with and for this person. But I set myself up as soon as I can in my day to remember that I have that choice to do that. And then I just rest in that place of knowing that that's my contribution for the day, because I can't fly around the world and help everyone and convince leaders that they should feel peaceful. You know what I mean? Like, that's not realistic for us. But we can hold in our heart, and we can send out that love that everyone is capable in an instant of choosing peace and choosing love, right? So even though it's daunting and we might not ever see it in our lifetime, what we're doing does matter when you make that choice to recognize even the most difficult person, either personally or worldly leader, as a baby, right? Like they were babies at one point. Like, they were innocent. They were filled with innocence. They were filled with love. And then life circumstances created this person that seems unlovable, but in them there's a spark, right? And so that's kind of what I focus on, is that spark and all the pain that they feel to be this kind of crappy person, like they are in pain. And the reason why I'm able to recognize that is because I also have that within myself, right? There's this whole other thing that's probably a conversation for another day, where we're not separate either, right? There's no, like, I am you and you are me, no matter how you roll the dice, right? That's why we're able to see these qualities in other people is because we have them within ourselves to varying degrees. Anyway, back to the basic practice, and we'll do some of that today, is whatever it is for you. Today we're going to meditate, and we're going to focus on the heart and our breath, and generating a feeling inside of us of love throughout our whole entire body, to feel that in every single cell. And then set an intention to be able to leave here today and keep that door open in your heart as you move through the day and you have your different experiences that can easily taint or shut that door, right? It could be as soon as you leave here, someone cuts you off, or you get a phone call. Who knows what today is going to, we don't know what today is going to bring, but we do know that it's going to bring something that will challenge us. And so today you have a choice, right, of how you want to react. And that's what these practices really are, is having an awareness of your reaction, right? Because there's a reaction to everything. And then choosing to not react ultimately, but how you're going to react, right? And the more you practice, that's why we meditate, that's why you do any other practices, that's why you meditate, you chant, even exercise, that's why you do yoga, is to sustain that thread, what you cultivate, what you generate during those practices. It infuses the rest of your day. So you don't really have to worry about what happens during those practices. It's just doing them as regularly as possible. Once a day, twice a day. Sometimes you skip a day, and then you notice that you have a bad day that day. If you don't have a practice, that's okay. You can start anytime, and you just start where you are. Maybe it's 2 minutes of breathing in the morning. It doesn't have to be hard at all. We're gentle with ourselves. We're not expecting our minds to clear, because that's a lie. There's no such thing as a clear mind. But we can be aware of everything, right? It's that awareness that we sort of tap into during our practices that allows us to become more non-reactive. When we're in the stories, it's super easy to get reactive. So we start to, and not in a dualistic way, separate our emotional reactions to things, and just become aware of it and take a few deep breaths. We learned when we were little, right? When you're angry, count to 10 or whatever, right? That's like, there's something to it. I just did it the other day, and I was like, that really does work. I don't need to open my mouth every time I'm aggravated with my husband. I don't need to be right all the time, right, quote unquote. And like when I actually just, like Swami Satchidananda says, use your teeth as bricks. When I actually create that brick wall, I feel angry for however long, a minute or two, and then I just keep breathing, and it like diffuses the whole thing. It diffuses it within me, and it usually diffuses whatever's going on with me and that other person, and then we can have a normal conversation. Because if we're both coming at it like, I want to be right, you're wrong, then there's no space there. So we had a retreat last weekend. I don't know. Yeah, last weekend. Not this past weekend, but the one before that. And I've been carrying around this stone flute with me for I don't know how many years, right? I got it at like a thrift store maybe 15 years ago. No idea. And I can't play it. It's really hard to play because it's made of jade, but it's pretty. And I've almost given it away a bunch of times, but I didn't because I'm like, it's so cool though. It's jade, like maybe someday I'll learn how to play this flute. And so for some reason I decided to bring it with me on the retreat. And I was setting up like the altar there, the puja table, the place where we had, our yoga classes, our kirtan. It's like a devotional place where you can go and just surrender everything. And so I put that, I didn't put it on there. Someone else was helping me unpack it, and they dropped the flute. And it broke. And that's happened to me many times with my crystals and my bowls over the years, so I'm good at being non-reactive at this point. I'm like, it's okay. I get a little high-pitched, no, it's okay. I'm like, we can just glue it. We can just glue it back together. So it stayed there. I still kind of just in it was only in two pieces. It didn't shatter. And then it dawned on me that it was releasing, or maybe this is what I wanted, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Releasing the energy of Krishna, right? And I know maybe that sounds weird when I use deity names like Krishna, Ganesh, or Hanuman, or Buddha, or whatever it is, but they're all, if it feels weird to you, just think of them as qualities that we have, right? They represent qualities, right? So Krishna is the quality of peace, of creativity, of love, and of compassion, right? And so, and he's known, the imagery of Krishna is that he plays a flute, right? And he kind of enchants those qualities when he plays the flute. And so I was like, we just released the energy of Krishna. Maybe I've been carrying that around for all this time. And so then that I let that simmer, right? Because then I had to run this retreat. And when I came home, a couple days after I came home, I was inspired to create there's a Krishna mantra, but create my own melody with it. So I started working on that, and I've been working on it every day. And so obviously I've been singing. It's called the Maha Mantra, which is a great mantra. It's very powerful to sing because it infuses you with those qualities, right? And people have been singing, you've heard of the Hare Krishnas, the cult. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about the mantra. But people have been chanting the Maha Mantra for years. And so you can imagine it's been chanted millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of times. So the energy when that gets chanted by any of us is really powerful because it's been repeated so many times. And that's the beauty of these mantras. But anyway, so I started to research Krishna a little bit more. And then it dawned on me that Krishna, this is all just within the past week, right? It dawned on me, if you've ever heard of the Bhagavad Gita, which we all started to read a year ago, and we didn't finish, but that's okay. Krishna is the main character. Well, Arjuna is one of the main characters, right? And Krishna is the deity that helps Arjuna in war. Which, again, I'm hoping that I can bring this full circle. But it started to dawn on me that Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita is explaining to Arjuna, who's going into this giant battle, he's a warrior, right? His whole family is going to battle against this other family. And he suddenly is struck because of that energy of Krishna, struck with this awareness that this is my family, right? How can I battle my family? Because he started to feel that the family of humanity, and that was a huge problem because this was an enormous war, and he was the leader, one of the leaders and the warriors. So the whole Bhagavad Gita is this conversation with Krishna. And trying to reconcile the love, really, right? How can we battle this other? Is there really an other? And so I started to think about, Krishna modern, right? This chant and using it every day, and how in modern times, how I can infuse that into my life. And coming back to what I talked about in the beginning with all the war and everything that's happening in the world and the suffering, is for me to be able to practice looking through eyes of love and to see everyone as family, right? As someone that I could potentially love. And that's how I use the practices, right? Is I've been inspired by that, by the message right now of Krishna. Everything, Hanuman, it's all love. Everything comes back to love. And then if we infuse ourselves with that love, and then we place ourselves in the world, then there's some love in the world. It sounds simple and it's kind of corny. I know using the word love is not popular, unfortunately. But I can't help but use it because that's what has ruled my life for a long time. And it's been a long, 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 long practice. And it doesn't always work. And I'm not always kind. I'm not always loving, but it's something I always come back to. It's the same message every time. And then it really is. Imagine if everybody did that, right? I know that's a pipe dream for now, but even just us right here, 5 of us. And then you think about, you've heard this so many times, how many people you interact with every day. And just being loving, even though it might make other people feel uncomfortable, right? It's so weird that love and being kind and stuff makes people uncomfortable. Do we find that? Like, they'll be like, oh, you're so hippy dippy or woo woo, that kind of stuff. And it's like, but I don't understand that. It's literally what we all want. But anyway, they start to think about it. And it ultimately gives other people permission to do the same thing. We don't control them at all, but think about all the people that you come into contact with every single day, and then all the people they come into contact with, and so on and so forth. The web is huge, just with 5 people, it's huge. So it just starts again, that foundation that I talked about in the beginning of a choice, just making a choice every day, however many times a day, and let that be your practice. Let that be your hard thing, right? Choosing love. Like, I'm just going to choose love. When you see how whatever things you ingest, whatever news you ingest on a daily basis, maybe you reduce that by at least 75%. But whatever it is, take a moment and hold that in your heart. All sides, not just the people that are, really suffering physically, but the people that are causing the suffering. They need so much, right? They need love. They need love. They need love. They need to be held. Like, that's huge. That's a big ask. You don't have to start there if that's really hard. But I do love, Ram Dass used to have on his puja table photos of world leaders that he really, really struggled with. World leaders that made choices that caused a lot of suffering. And that was part of his practice, was loving them. And that's like a beautiful practice. But start with yourself. Start with yourself. It's called metta, right? You start with yourself, loving kindness, for however long you need to do that for. You can work on that for a year before you start to try to love someone that challenges you. And then little by little, you might pull in the challenging people. And it could just be like your kid that's challenging you to start with. Loving kindness. And then, gradually more difficult, unless you're ready to jump to, I won't name any names because it's none of my business, but who, big influences in the world that cause a lot of suffering. You can bring it that far. And just even notice what it feels like to feel loving while you're imagining them, without even trying to love them, right? Or send them love, but just to imagine standing with or sitting with that person and just feeling love within yourself. That's pretty challenging, right? Because you'd want to be say all kinds of things. So just start there. Start with yourself and generating love. And being okay with that, because that can bring up weird feelings too. Loving yourself. Loving your whole entire self. Not yourself if you do this or if you hadn't done that. like just yourself, who you are, with all the choices that you've made. Every single part of yourself, your body, your mind, your heart. Just love yourself. All the good, all the bad, all of it. That's a pretty big job. Is to love yourself. Because there's always that little, but if, what if, I mean, I could probably love myself if, there's always that if. So you can just throw the if in the trash and then just love yourself. That's the beauty, something that I've learned, like Ram Dass, his guru Maharaji. When he met him, he did not want to meet him, but when he met him, he said he felt like love beyond any love that he has ever felt in his whole entire life for as long as he could remember. And he felt a lot of love from his mom and his family, you know, but when he felt the love of the guru, someone that could see right through him, all of his good, all of his bad, all the things that you want to hide and nobody knows about, you know, he loved him no matter what. And that's inside of us, that guru, our inner teacher, that's inside of us all the time. So just loving yourself, that's the place. That's the starting point. And then you'll see, like it comes naturally when you start to want to extend it out. And it could be to the bird that you're looking at out the window when you're on your bike and chanting Hare Krishna. However it happens naturally. That's my favorite part about chanting, is that you don't have to really do a lot of work. It's just the more you do it, the better you feel. And you're like, oh, this is cool. Like right now, I'm like, I have PMS and I'm in a good mood. This is amazing. I've been so consistent with my practices, and it's chanting. It's super easy and fun, you know, and it works. So that's like, I feel like I'm cheating because it's so easy and it's fun. And anyway, so anything? Any questions, thoughts, comments so far before we meditate for a little while? No, it's all right if there isn't. How do we feel about loving ourselves?
I want to, but like you said, it's challenging. It's like, because you're like, oh my God, what did I do that for? You know what I mean? Like one little decision, and then you're just like question. It's like super hard, and
Yeah.
something you need to be consistent with,
Yeah.
because you do hear that, you know, I don't know the exact corny saying, but you need to love yourself first so that you can, you know, like I want to put that out there.
Yeah. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like you have to love yourself fully before you can love. So that's a lie.
Right.
That little saying. Can't love anyone else until you love yourself.
Yeah.
Come on now. We've been doing that for ages.
Right.
We're not great at it.
I think that loving yourself has a lot to do with what else is going on in your life.
Yep.
And I retired a year ago, and since retiring, letting go of what I thought was just such important work, I have found it much easier to focus on myself and to really appreciate myself. That's another word.
Yeah.
For love.
Yeah.
And I don't think I could do what I feel I can do now when I was so caught up in all of the things I was doing as a working person.
Yep.
And so I think you need to sort of give yourself a little bit of space to understand what else you're doing if you're having trouble sort of connecting and loving yourself, because you're asking for an awful lot. We ask for a lot of ourselves at different times.
Yeah. I love that you brought that up too, because that's huge. And like, I know Josh is very excited to have talks about that in particular, is the way that we fill our lives. I mean, it's kind of what's been impressed upon us, like the working life, right? and
it's so all consuming.
it's all
can be.
consuming. It can be totally, yeah.
And some people really, really thrive in that. I know I did.
Yeah. But you're also simultaneously ignoring parts of yourself that.
Oh, absolutely.
So you, in the past year, you've probably
I realized.
you've gotten really quiet, right? You've
And I've
retired.
had-
There's been more
yes.
quiet, and that's huge.
And I got it. It's just been the most fabulous time.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And I hope that for everyone.
Yeah.
That everyone gets to that point where they can just enjoy life and what you want.
And maybe not wait until retirement, right?
Well,
'Cause
that
that's-
would be the ideal.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes.
And that's a regret of mine that I wasn't able to incorporate that. And it should be something you can incorporate before you retire.
I love that. No, it's so you don't. It's so many people come here on the brink of retirement to Joy over the years, and it's like it's an interesting place that no one talks about. Is that it's a huge transition
Yeah.
in life that is
Yeah.
not talked about enough, because there's a lot of people that don't feel like you.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
There's a
And-
lot of confusion.
And I feel bad.
Yeah.
For people that are struggling that way. I just look at it and say,
Yeah, that's amazing.
you know.
But there is that, like, that is like a years long conversation, is the way that we think we should be living our lives, that we're sacrificing the part of ourselves that it's so quiet. Like, our hearts are very quiet. Our fear is really loud, right? Like, that's loud, and that's usually what dictates our life. However you want to boil it down, it does boil down to like love or fear. And the love is so quiet. That voice, the inner voice, our true heart and intuition is so quiet, and it's so patient, you know. And so we oftentimes live these lives where we're just more and more and more and more for whatever reason. Half the time we don't even know. It's just because we think it's what we should be doing, and it's so hard to take the time to get quiet. And then, but when you do, it's like the gentleness of the heart is just like, oh, like, you can hear me now, you know. It's so sweet to have that space.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, these practices, and I know it's hard to, like, how do you figure that out? We have created the lives that we have right now that require us to do a lot. And I mean, my personal recommendation would be to, you know, reduce as much as you can. That causes a lot of change and interesting relationships and changes in relationships when you begin to simplify your life as much as possible. But also, when I talk about the practices too, right, it's like, you don't want them to feel like another thing you should be doing, because then they don't work, because then it's like, oh shit, I gotta meditate. Like, that's awful, you know. I gotta go to yoga. It should not, like, don't do it almost, if that's how it's gonna feel, but still do it. But don't, you know, maybe that's how it is at first, and then eventually it becomes like whatever thing you love to eat. It's like your chocolate cake, where you set it up. You're like, I'm gonna wait to eat this piece of cake. This is me. Like, my house is quiet. Maybe it's even clean. I have a candle lit. Best case scenario for eating this chocolate cake in peace. Practices should feel like that too. Like, you're excited to experience this delicious thing that nourishes you. Right? It nourishes your heart, and it gives your heart a chance for you to listen to it. That was such the beautiful thing about the retreat. I was one of 18, but seeing 17 women, and even 8, I did get to relax, even though I ran the retreat, because we did the semi-silent. So we had 7 hours a day in silence. Seeing 18 women, myself included, relax. Truly. sit around a fire, eyes are closed, like just listening to those inner promptings of what how we really wanted to move throughout the day was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, because it's what we long for, is to just, not always to relax, right? There's like, if we could relax long enough, you'd find that you have energy, and you're probably seeing that, right? You give yourself the time to relax long enough, then you sort of are able to find the path of whatever comes next, and then you'll actually feel motivated to exercise and eat healthy. But at first you might relax and eat your cake and do all the things that you haven't been able to do, and that's kind of how the retreat was, you know. But to see that was amazing. Like, you could just tell it doesn't happen enough. And then to see just naturally everyone beginning to realize how much they do love themselves, you know, like, and that it's all perfect and okay. All the stuff that we thought that wasn't, you know, like that. And that just happened in 4 days. I was like, oh, I wish we had 10 more days. we just got to a point where I could see everyone sort of let go, you know, and then it was time to go home, but at least they got to experience that. That's why retreats are important. However that shows up, even if it's a vacation, you know, if you take a vacation, don't plan out every second of it. Like you say, you guys just chill. Mm-hmm. And how many days, it takes a couple days to unwind, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Where you're like, all right, this thing needs to go in the trash. And there was no electronics on the retreat. You know, they had them. They could use them after a silent time. But as the days went on, you could see there were less and less. And that's what happens to me every time. I'm like, I could just literally throw this thing out after a certain time. Like, what are we doing? That's a whole other class, you know. But the practices, you know, really, it keeps on kind of pulling back a little bit more. Love yourself, but then what does it take to love yourself, right? It takes doing the practices and getting to a point where it feels you're excited to do the practice, maybe, right? You know, it's not a pain in the butt. I gotta do this. I gotta send love out to the world. Like, that's it's on my list. It's kind of like the 300-hour trainees. It's kind of like you're forced into that right now, where you might be like, I gotta do this. I gotta become this loving person. But eventually it becomes easy, you know. So maybe this week you try out. I can text you the mantra, that Maha mantra, 17 minutes long. Literally, it will fly by. You just listen. That's all you're doing is listening. You will, like, your whole entire energy will shift. You feel like a different person, and then that's it, right? Then you go about your day. All right. Well, thank you for that. That's huge. It's so huge, and I'm happy that you're in that place now, because that's, yes. How can we get women, well, men and women, it totally is, but women, our minds are different.
Yeah. They never stop.
They never stop. So how can we get to that place where we give ourselves permission to choose ourselves, but not in a selfish way, right? Just to create a little more spaciousness in our lives. That's hard, but it's important to do that, and it feels good when you do that. We're gonna close our eyes. What time are we at? 8:13. So it's all technical ways to sit for meditation, but for today, just be comfortable. And then see maybe if you can sit up a little taller, but don't force anything. Just be comfortable and find your breath. And we're we're just going to set aside the shoulds and the ifs and the tries. All those words can just go to the side for now. Because when you sit and you close your eyes, there's not anything that should be happening. There's no better way to do it. There's no, you just are, right? So the thoughts come and go, the aches of the body come and go, and you just be gentle with yourself in every way, emotionally, physically. It's okay to adjust your seated position so that way your body is comfortable. You're not going to get in trouble. You're not going to do anything wrong. There is no wrong. And the same with the quality of your thoughts. When you close your eyes, it might be really loud in there and busy, and that's okay. Let it be. Let it all be what it is. Let your body be what it is. Let your mind be what it is. Let your emotions be what it is. And just breathe. And don't even try to change your breath. Let your breath be what it is. See if you can just make a simple shift to just becoming aware of all those things, right? Your body, your thoughts, your emotions. You don't have to change anything. And then it's so common to drift off and kind of even forget what we're doing, and at some point you realize it and you come back. So you just come back. That's part of the ebb and flow, is the drifting off, the coming back, the awareness of body, thoughts, and breath, the tendency to think you should be doing something different, or how you're doing it is wrong. You're just aware of that. Don't even try to push that away. Start to feel yourself settling. If you don't, again, that's okay. Just breathe and be. is to bring your awareness to your heart center, where the energy of the heart is the heart chakra. So right at the center of the chest, not the physical heart that's over to the left side, but right at the center of the chest. And just imagine that you're breathing in and out from that space. However it shows up for you. Maybe your breath moves from the back to the front, or there's a spiraling sensation, or whatever it is. Just however that manifests when you sense or imagine breathing into the heart chakra. And then we can begin to try on those qualities that I talked about earlier. The qualities of love, like a vast ocean of love. Just breathing into that a few times. Being gentle with how it shows up for you. Again, there's no right or wrong. And the quality of patience. And even if we just stick with those two qualities, love and patience, and breathing in and out from the heart chakra, like there's a flow, like waves on the ocean. We can allow those qualities to wash over us. Even if all the other stuff is happening at the same time, the thoughts, the body, the emotions. emotions. Maybe you feel like you're just kind of hanging out with all that. And choosing that flow of love and patience. And eventually feel like you're just hanging out with that. All the awarenesses. And taking a few deep breaths. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So much easier when you do it together, right? You'll have the recording. You can just fast forward to the end, do a tiny meditation. All right. Well, thank you for being here this morning. And yeah, we're just going to build on these conversations every time we show up. They'll change and shift and whatever it is. So see how today goes and tell me about it. You'll be carrying this with you for a little while until you fall back to sleep like we always do. And then you'll wake up and be like, oh yeah, right, the trying to love. It's okay to try to love. Just don't let it feel too forceful. Have a good
That was
day.
great.
Good.
I have a very hard time meditating.
Yeah, you've always said that.
Always.
So what happens?
The mind, like you said, the mind just racing with thought, just whatever it is. It's like, could be important thoughts or just something totally random, it just goes.
Yeah. And then if you just let it be what it is, how do you feel about that?
Like just now,
Yeah.
that there wasn't as, I'd say, as much racing
Yeah.
as usual.
Yeah.
And maybe it is helpful to like the more guided meditation. Like if I'm just sitting there and just trying to, even just like, I think I've told you this, doing the like the Reiki ideals.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wake up or go to sleep just trying to think of them. There's 5. I can't get to the 5th one ever in a row. Like I start over and over and
Yeah.
over. Eventually, I like might get through it like a couple of times, but I'm like, what's wrong? Like what? It's just that. Why can't I calm it down, or what? You know what I mean? Whatever you want to call it. It's like, why does it constantly just go with thoughts that might not even like? It could be, I don't know. I could wake up and be like, oh my God, am I having Christmas again? Like literally, just ridiculous thoughts that are, most of them are not important, but
Yeah.
it's just like, oh, like just stupid, whether it's like your errands that you gotta do or your, or
Yeah.
even the things you actually want to do, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
It's just like,
Just love
But-
it. Just be like, this is me.
yes,
That's
Yeah.
it.
yeah, I do, I try,
Yeah.
like it's, those thoughts all, like always at least sometime during the day, I try to find something to be grateful for, thankful for, you know, just that loving
Yeah.
feeling towards myself. But man, it's
maybe
hard.
you're trying to.
Right. Like get rid of
Probably.
try. Yeah.
Probably. Exactly.
Yeah.
And just
Yeah.
be like, just
Give-
be like, I
give
love
yourself a
myself.
break.
Yeah.
Yes.
And don't try.
Yeah.
You know, just, and you don't even have to like find something to be grateful for. Just be
Yeah.
like, I love myself.
Yeah.
And laugh.
I know, that reminds me, this guy that my husband like worked for him years and years ago, he was a funny guy, and he would say, he'd wake up every day and he'd look in the mirror and just say, I love myself, and it just, it made me
Wow.
thinking about that,
Yeah.
but I
That's
probably
awesome.
thought he was crazy back then, but
Yeah.
now I'm like, not a bad idea.
Have you tried that? Looking in the mirror and saying, I love you?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you have. I had to like at some point in my life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's pretty weird.
It is
to be,
weird.
but it's like,
I cried.
why is it
I
right?
started crying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good place to start.
It's a fleeting feeling, but
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
We are precious. We
Yeah.
are. We are. We are precious. This human existence. All right. Maybe I'll see you in yoga across the hall. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
So I'll email this out.